Good evening, everybody. As we get started here, we're going to start with the invocation by Pastor Ken Sharp, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by, and I would like to welcome, for the first time in public, Councilwoman Marilyn Ford. Thank you very much. Please rise for the invocation.
Lord, we love you today. Thank you for your many blessings that were bestowed upon us this morning. Thank you for health, life, and the pursuit of happiness. Lord, we ask that your blessings would be in this facility tonight. And Lord, let your perfect will be done. Give us wisdom and bless us as this community grows and experiences the excitement that you have for us. Give us peace. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Marilyn, why don't you step down and let the good pastor do his job with you.
Ms. Ford, raise your right hand. I, Marilyn Ford,
I'm Marilyn Ford,
a citizen of the state of Florida and of the United States of America,
a citizen of the state of Florida and the United States of America,
do hereby solemnly swear or affirm
do hereby solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support, protect, and defend
that I will support, protect, and defend
the Constitution of the United States and of the state of Florida,
the Constitution of the United States and the state of Florida,
that I am duly qualified to hold office
that I am duly qualified to hold office
under the Constitution of the state
under the Constitution of the state
and the charter of the city of Port Orange,
and the charter of the city of Port Orange,
and that I will faithfully perform the duties
and that I will faithfully perform the duties
of council member of the city of Port Orange,
of council member of the city of Port Orange,
on which I am now about to enter.
on which I am now about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you
It is, of course, customary for us to congratulate you, and knowing that we've got a lot of work to do. Marilyn, you certainly getting it at the right time because you're starting not that far into this term. You've got 3.5 years to help us, all of us collectively as a team. We've got a lot to do, and we've got a lot of work to do in Port Orange, and I think all of us can say collectively congratulations, and we look forward to it. Now, here's your first public remarks as a council person. You can do it up here and face them, or you can do it right there, however you want to do it. You might want to do it there, but turn around. Suit yourself, but you're talking to them.
Can you hear me? Yes. I certainly am humbled and also very pleased with the outcome that I've been selected to represent you in this government. I pledge to do all I can to continue to earn your trust, to execute my duties faithfully, and I certainly hope to continue to be half the representative my husband was, and to bring his dedication, his keen fiscal abilities, and his sense of humor every day to the dais. Thank you very much, and thank you for all my friends and family and the citizens that have showed up tonight. Please feel free to call on me. I really am here to serve you.
Pastor Sharp, thanks for helping us out tonight. Let's get to work.
Can I have a picture?
Can you have a picture?
Yeah, with
Absolutely.
some of my friends
Yeah.
and family that showed up.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And maybe Mr. Rosen, could you perhaps take a picture?
I thought you were going to ask for a picture with him. I was like, sure.
There's a first time for everything.
I'd like to get a picture with the assistant city manager.
That's awesome.
My kids don't want me in their picture, so at least.
Well, you could be behind me.
But you gotta
How's
take the
that?
picture.
Right now, we
Will that all
are.
fit the picture?
Get on down there,
I mean,
boys.
if we face forward and then,
Council, let's go.
oh, I didn't think of, mine's up there. Can you just use yours? Okay. Oh,
Oh, they're scooching in.
He's taking the picture.
So wide angle lens for a selfie, buddy.
Whoa. Whoa.
Alan, I need
One
more.
more. One more.
I need one of those things they do in the photo shoots with the.
Just
makes
take.
everybody laugh. All right, there you go. Hey, Cheryl.
Thank you for indulging me. Thank you.
Hey, Mayor. Both. They're both here.
Before they sneak out, I just want to recognize and thank Councilwoman Billy Wheeler and Councilwoman Deb Dennis of Volusia County Council for showing up, and invite you back anytime you'd like to come talk to us about any issue you like. Our door is open, and I'm sure any issue you would like.
We can send you a list.
We just wanted to continue our council meeting that started at 8:30 this morning, and we're just getting home. So, we just had.
So you're just saying, right?
I'm just saying.
Okay. Well, we're grateful to see you both, and I wanted to make sure that everybody knew that you're here. And absolutely, you're free anytime to come back to talk to us about anything that we need to be educated on.
You can invite us back at any time. Thank you.
Thank you both for coming. All right, now we really do have to get to work. Public comments on consent agenda items. Oh, we could do that.
Nah.
We can call the roll now. Boy,
Councilwoman Ford,
Present.
Councilman Bastian, Councilman Stiltner,
Here.
Vice Mayor Tremont,
Here.
Mayor Burnett.
Present. We've got four of us. Drew is out of town, so we'll try not to change the history of the city while he's away too much anyway. Public comments on any of the consent agenda items? Do I see anybody? There being none,
Hang on a second, Mayor.
you,
I needed to pull one.
that's not what I
We're on
asked.
public comment.
That being none, I would ask for the agenda for the evening. I need a motion to approve the agenda for the evening.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Now, agenda approval, I'm sorry, for the consent agenda, you have a motion to pull one of the items?
I do, but my thing's not up, so I don't remember which one it is.
You remember the item it was?
Yeah, Jake, which one was it? We talked about this a while back.
I'm looking. I forgot already.
How very convenient, you, Mr. City Manager.
Yeah, I know.
Mayor, I'd like to ask that item 11 be pulled.
Is that a motion to pull number 11 from the consent agenda?
Yes, it is.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
11 is no longer on consent. Any others?
Yeah, I was pulling number 9.
I think it was 9, yeah.
The motion to approve, to pull number 9.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All signify by saying aye.
Aye.
So items 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 remain on consent. May I have a motion for approval of those items?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion for approval and a second. Call the roll.
Councilwoman Ford,
Yes.
Councilman Stiltner.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Tremont,
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, I just had a deja vu moment when she asked for Councilman Ford to
I think that's gonna happen. a
place
lot
the vote.
tonight.
I was like, that was pretty cool. Item 9. Chase, that's the one you pulled.
Yeah, I don't need any discussion on it. I've just, it was not an ordinance that I was supporting, so I didn't want it to pass on the consent.
Okay.
That's all.
Any other comments by anybody else? Need a motion for approval for Resolution 1925?
So moved.
Second.
Do we have a second? Anyone else like to speak to this? There being none, call the roll.
Councilwoman Ford,
Yes.
Councilman Stelner.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Traymont,
No.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 3-1. Item 11, Scott.
Thanks.
I just wanted to mention my concern with this, is one particular project, and Jake and I have been talking about it. The $414,000 number for the replacement of the AC for the Lakeside Community Center, just in my mind is entirely too much, and I know that Jake and his staff is continuing to look at that and find other options, but on consent, I wanted to make sure we had an opportunity to mention that.
Of course, that's not something that, that's not how much we're deciding to, we haven't.
Understand.
We haven't bid it yet.
Right.
But yeah, that's a hard pill to swallow, especially knowing some of the design issues that have caused and added some heartburn to this, but whatever it costs, the project itself, it needs done, it needs addressed.
Right.
Any other comments on this item?
Mayor, I'll add that and Councilman Stirton and I have already talked, and we're looking at another professional come in and take a look. But it's not just air conditioning and ductwork, but it's mold mitigation, new ceiling, and some of the work above the ceiling, and some unforeseen. So pretty robust. One of the other concerns with things like this is once you see the number, they bid to the number. We've had a lot of contracts, and we always have contracts that come in sometimes higher than the estimate, sometimes much lower. We just had two that came in to a savings of about $84,000. So, the government has to be transparent, unfortunately. So, there's the $414,000. We hope not to spend it all.
Okay. Appreciate any effort you guys can make before we go out to bid.
We always do. Yes, sir.
Very good. Call the roll.
Councilwoman Ford,
Yes.
Councilman Stelner.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Traymont,
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 4-0. That brings us to citizen participation on agenda. Do I have any? Don't believe I do. Robert, you wanted, yours is to speak to an agenda item, so I'll hold you for that item. Is that okay?
I prefer to speak now.
Okay. I just won't call on you then when we address it, but feel free.
Mayor, council members, Robert Reinhagen, 1425 Dexter Drive, Port Orange. I came to the June 4th City Council meeting expecting to learn about the legal procedures by which the city could become a conduit to provide a loan to Palmer College of Chiropractic based on the city issuing bonds in the marketplace. The summary for this agenda item states that with input from the city's bond counsel and the city's financial advisor, the Palmer representative will address how, similar to the city's 2010 bonds, Palmer alone will be responsible for making the payment on the debts. I was dumbfounded when the city manager said that there would be no presenter because there was nothing new to be added. This essentially shut down all discussion in spite of the agenda's summary's call for input from the city's bond and financial advisor. Therefore, I request that the council table the motion on the Palmer College of Chiropractic loan refinancing until the city's commitment to provide the citizens and yourself with the additional background information from the city bond and financial advisors can be fulfilled. In particular, I am concerned as to what the impact of the city issuing $19 million in bonds will or has had on the city's credit rating. I request that you raise that question with the city staff when the Palmer refinancing issue comes before you. I continue to oppose the city participating in the refinance of the existing Series 2010 bonds. I suggest that the city instead let the bonds simply continue as already committed to. As Mr. T. Meyer pointed out, it is the Davenport facility that will benefit in the short term, not the Port Orange facility. If Palmer College of Chiropractic wants to pursue the refinancing, I suggest they consider having the city of Davenport act as the conduit. The city has made commitments to the Palmer College of Chiropractic, and I believe that the purpose was to provide the financial foundation to assure that the new facility could take hold. That has essentially been accomplished. City participation should not be considered a perpetual source of support to the college. If Palmer truly believes that the demand for expansion here in Port Orange is out there, then we should let the marketplace prevail without government interference. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robert.
Well, I think it's appropriate now that we're the council comments section of the meeting that we should start with Marilyn.
The only thing I was going to comment on is tomorrow is the employee recognition. Regrettably, I already have something on my calendar, so I just wanted to say to Port Orange City employees who are present tonight, as well as those that will be there tomorrow, thank you for the years of service that you have put in making our city such a great place to live. And we know that your efforts are the things that really have resulted in satisfying our citizens. So thank you, and I'd like to, hats off to you. That's it.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jason?
Yeah, just 2 items, Mayor. One, spoken to Jake about this, and I wanted to see if we can request possibly a workshop on the popular phrase being used, smart growth. You know, that's certainly a buzzword that's been thrown around. I think it'd be a good opportunity to really educate the folks what exactly smart growth is. I think a lot of times people throw out that term, and sometimes that term, smart growth, means no growth, but that's not the professional approach to it. So I'd like to see if we can have a workshop to discuss what the city is doing in terms of how we're growing, what our processes are, and how we're looking to accommodate the wishes of the voters in maintaining that smart growth persona. Jake, is that something that
I think that kind of falls in line with some of the requests and some of the things that we worked. I'll report on at the end of the meeting with the elected officials
Right.
roundtable and the things that we discussed. If we're going to participate in a county-wide effort on those things, that's part of the reason why Jake shared the slides with you guys from that meeting. We're going to have to discuss our involvement in that, and then of course our own emphasis on it as well.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and I'd like to include things that we have done, even in the past couple of years, how we've accommodated that. You know, a lot of that has to do with minimizing the density, and a lot of the rezonings that we've done. People are always asking the question, you know, why are you approving this? Well, if you don't approve that, then something much worse, much more impacting on our area can go in there. So just want to have that educational workshop. Second item, Mayor, was I think we need to, in discussion of our ADA compliance, our transition, and being more being more compliant with the law in terms of for people with disabilities. Our feed of our current meetings and workshops, whatnot, we need to look into adding closed captioning for the hearing impaired in that. I think we open ourselves up to some liability by not. So I'd like to look into avenues and what it would take to get there. It's an expensive process. So that I'd like Jake, if you could bring back some suggestions and what we need to do, whether that's not go live anymore and move it to 24 hours and whatnot. I know that's not a popular thing, but you're not removing transparency. You're still broadcasting. But if it would save a lot of money, whether the tune of $150,000 or whatever the cost was last time I looked at it, just to simply do something of that nature. Can you speak to that at all, Jake?
and also mention the things we've already tried to do in that regard.
If, sure, I can talk about it now. I was prepared to talk about it in city manager comments whenever you want.
Bring it on right now.
Okay. Let me get there.
there is a sentiment for those that are watching and listening now that is kind of competing. We do close caption the meetings after the fact for replay, and people can access those replays. But during the meeting, it is very difficult to include some of the legal requirements that we have, which includes being able to identify a speaker on live time with that closed captioning feed. And those are some expensive things. So what we're doing is battling the need for accessibility versus the cost of complying with the law, because right now all the cities in this area even are, and we are included, are dealing with the basic drive-by lawsuits that you have with any other issue. People are hitting us up with this one as well. So, you know, Jake, why don't you give some background?
Yes, sir. So right now, we provide this council meeting live on channel 498, which is an analog channel via Spectrum, and on YouTube, which is about a second or two delayed, I'd say. And that's via our website to a YouTube page. Neither one of those are real-time closed captioned. The federal guideline to be ADA compliant is a 98% accuracy rate. We experimented with the ACE 2000 machine that does that. It uses smart algorithms to try to learn our voices and learn our mannerisms and get as close as they can. We have push to talk, as you remember, which I think that's a culture thing that everybody up here could get used to. But I would say we are probably at the 55 to 60% rate for those of you that have done those Facebook and other kind of puzzles where they write words wrong, but you still know what's said. That doesn't work in closed captioning. It's got to say exactly what you said. So we didn't get there, and that was just how hard will it be to get done. We have some sister cities, not necessarily in Volusia County, but here in Florida and all over the nation that have much more elaborate systems, and from what I understand, they're not there either. They don't have as much of a litigious society of drive-by drive-by lawsuits, but we're seeing a rash of those here in Florida, and we have to be careful. The options we have range from $55,000 to $60,000 up front, and $5,000 to $6,000 to $7,000 a year in upkeep, to $70,000 a year straight up. The more money you spend, the more accurate they get. However, I'm not reasonably assured that even the $70,000 a year one ends up being 98% accurate. So the question becomes, do we toy around with that 75, 85, 90% accuracy and hope that nobody does the math and figures out we're not 98%, or do we just go away from live streaming like some of our local sister cities have and go to the 24-hour delayed? Our city and I think our state does not allow you to interact via web. In other words, you can't write in and comment on an item remotely. Our TV obviously doesn't give you the ability to do that. So what you're gaining is real-time information. Is real-time information important? Some people think it is. Some people think it isn't. There's some people that'll record a basketball game or a football game and watch it later. There's some people that'll record a football game or a basketball game and never watch it later because it happened last night and they already know the score. They mean well, but they don't. So by not going live, I think the people that are out there right now watching this will stop watching it or not watch it as often, and rely heavily on us to say, well, you know, in a transparency picture, we're not being less transparent, but by giving them a Tuesday night, a time schedule to watch it, we give them the ability to watch us live and believe it or not, provide us feedback tomorrow or the next day. I saw on the video or in time 45 minutes into it, you said this, I think that'll go away because people won't want to sit through the whole thing just to get to their point. Now, on the other side of that, I can say after the fact, oh, you're looking for that? That happened in the 45-minute point of last night's comments, and I can provide that information much more pointedly, but right now they're just watching. What I guess I'm saying is I could spend up to probably $150,000 a year and still not guarantee you're going to get a lawsuit. You're not going to get a lawsuit because we're 98% compliant. But I do also understand the political implications of taking this live stream away. Having said that, other cities in Volusia County have decided it's not worth the risk, and they've pulled it and gone the next day 100%. And that's where somebody listens, they have a machine do it, and then they double check it, make sure it's 98% accurate, and then post it.
Jake, I'm curious as to the cost difference. I'm not concerned about a charge of being less transparent, frankly, because fact is the information's not being hidden. It's still being provided.
That's our perception.
My job is always to be as fiscally sound and try to cut costs where possible and use those to better serve our residents. I'm not eliminating a service here. I'm wondering what the change of cost would be in a situation like that.
From what we're doing now, and
Correct. To live streaming plus the addition of being compliant.
I don't know. I have not found a solution that guarantees 98% WCAG compliance that relieves us of the liability should they not be. I'm sure they're out there. I'm sure I could write a contract for it, but I don't know the cost right now.
Well, the cost of running live and closed caption versus the cost of running delayed and closed caption.
Delayed closed caption,
Yeah,
0.
okay. Compared to,
Closed caption from a service called Caption Live. The equipment is about $30,000, and the live captioning is about $50,000 per year based on a high-end estimate of 75 meetings per year at 3 hours per meeting.
Okay.
And we seldom, well, not seldom, we average 3 hours per
Well, the way
meeting.
we're going right now, it will be.
Well, you asked the question. I could have wrote a memo.
and can I ask you a question, Matt? So we're not in compliance simply by running a replay with closed caption?
No, absolutely not. There's a requirement for the live broadcast that we provide the captioning. I will say, based on my research, the difference between a device and obtaining a live captioning service, so actually like having a person caption the meeting, I think you're reducing your risk greatly. You'll never get to a point where there's no risk. That we understand that. We can catch a lawsuit because the live captioning guy is not doing it good enough. But I'm telling you that it would be a much less risk position to have the live captioning, which is much more accurate, and the FCC standard is a little lesser when it is a live captioning event versus an after-the-fact captioning. After-the-fact captioning has to be nearly perfect to comply. What we've demoed has not even come close to these standards, and we're concerned that you're spending a less amount of money. You're spending a one-time fee for a captioning device, but I don't know that that's significantly decreasing your risk in liability.
This is the one thing that's been decided outside of our hands is the key to the American Disabilities Act is the phrase, a reasonable accommodation. Well, basically, somebody else has decided what's reasonable. Me personally, I think the closed captioning and not giving up the live broadcast is reasonable, but we don't get to decide what that standard is. That's been decided for us. I have serious problems with giving up the openness that we currently enjoy.
Just one final comment to that, and just to make the public aware from where I'm coming from is, and the mayor alluded to that earlier, the amount of settlements that we're having to do as a city, the amount of court cases, some of which are justifiable, many of which are extremely frivolous, that we have to come out of hundreds of thousands of dollars. So this is one way of mitigating that, spending fewer dollars on lawsuits that just don't need to be brought before us. It's something worth exploring. So that's the rationale for my comments.
Okay,
Thanks, Mayor.
thank you. Scott?
Good word. Just to echo some of Councilman Chamott's earlier comments about the smart growth discussion that's going on, I had also reached out to Jake with some ideas. Some of the things that I'm hearing that I want to make sure, you know, if we have a workshop and as we work with our partners in the media, so to speak, is one of the messages that I think that's being missed is the legal portion of growth. And, you know, the perception that local government can just say no, right? They can't build that. The private property owner can't exercise their rights to do something on their property or what have you. And we need to work, because that part of the story just never seems to really get told well. And I think that we need to work on that, because there are a lot of constraints that folks just don't seem to be aware of in terms of, you know, a landowner's rights to develop and build on their property in accordance with zoning and different things like that. So I think that part of it, you know, also needs to be part of the discussion, and we need to make sure we focus on getting that information out there so people can understand that. I had a resident the other day was talking to me, and in a very short amount of time I realized that his perception was that the city council gets to decide if a building is a McDonald's, a Burger King, or a Wendy's. You know, and I was trying to explain that is not how that works. You know, local government doesn't decide how many fast food restaurants of a specific kind or something like that occurs in a jurisdiction. So, but there's some interesting discussions out there that I think need to be had, and some more information about the legal aspects of controlling growth with regard to what private property owners' rights are. I also want to make a comment. We activated our own city ambulance. I guess it's maybe been 2-3 months now. I appreciate the updates in the weekly. Jake, those are very beneficial. So to date, we're at about 225 responses, medical responses that we've had to use our ambulance for, of which about 148 transports have occurred. One of the things that I'm very happy to see thus far is only about 7 of those calls, it looks like, were actually outside of our legal corporate boundaries of the city, but actually were on the fringe. They were on Reed Canal, a couple on Tomoka Farms Road, so they're right there, and they may be our residents anyhow. What I would like to see at some point is an update on what's happening with that issue when our ambulance is not in service. Because right now I believe we're just running so many days a week per 12-hour shift, so there's a lot of time where we don't have that available, and I'd like to know, is the county improving on what our concerns were? What are those numbers? And I know we've had difficulty with that, but I like what I'm seeing in terms of the response times and the use that we're getting and the quality of use that we're getting out of that program, but I want to know what else is going on when it's not being utilized and that additional resource is not available. Are residents getting the service that they need to be getting, or are there other issues there? We need to continue that discussion. So,
Scott, I'd also be interested in I saw the response time. I'd like to know what those are in comparison to what the county was doing.
Right.
And are we using the same formula that was being used? Is it from the call, or is it from the dispatch? And so just to add to that, that's a good word.
yep. Okay. That's all I got for now.
Thank you. Just a couple of things. First of all, is Elijah Jones and Matthew Myers here? Matthew Meyer, I'm sorry. Interns, come on up. Council, we've got a couple of wonderful students from Spruce Creek High School that are interning in the finance department this summer. And this is our chance to welcome them and then grill them a little bit if we want. But do me a favor, introduce yourself, tell us what year you're going into and what school you go to.
Okay, So, my name's Aaliyah Jones. I am 17 years old. I go to Spruce Creek High School. I am currently dual enrolled at Daytona State. I've done competitive swimming since I was 8 years old. I also run track for Spruce Creek High School. And,
You gonna be a senior this year?
yeah, I am going to be a senior
All
this
right.
year. Yep. So I'm very eager to learn new things, and this is very exciting. This is my first time being at a council meeting.
Awesome, terrific.
I'm Matthew Meyer. I lived in Port Orange all my life. I'm 16. I'm going into my junior year, and I'm going to be dual enrolling. I'm about to start it this next year. So, and I also swim with Leah. That's how we kind of know each other. And I did play Port Orange football like all my life, and then decided it was too hot, so I went to swimming. And then that's pretty much it.
Are your folks here tonight?
No, they're not. I told them they should be. But
They're watching on live stream, right? Great.
I hope so. My grandma might be. She doesn't live here though. So.
Watch on that live stream while we can. Thank you both. Appreciate you both helping out over the summer. I hope that this is a terrific learning experience for the both of you. And hopefully Dr. Scott gets tons and tons and tons of productivity out of you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Thank you, guys.
So, Mayor, just as a comment on the comments and for the public, the Spruce Creek High Academy of Finance has five interns, paid interns here in the city. So, yeah, I think the city manager might be glomming onto the mayor's ALAG kind of thing to get Academy of Finance people in here, but they're going through a little internship university with Dr. Niels, and I think they're going to go back to school with a good appreciation of finance. Whether they want to go in government finance when all is said and done, I don't know, but at least they'll know what it's all about. So I appreciate all five of them. We have 2 in finance, 2 in the legal department, and 1 in the clerk's office.
Excellent.
Excellent. I know that my oldest son did a summer studies with Embry-Riddle in dual enrollment because he wanted to go into engineering. And I was fortunate to find out on somebody else's dime that that was not for him. So interning can do an awful lot of different things, but all of it's good, no matter what direction you take. We're very, very happy to have you both here. Board appointments, interviews, and reports. This is an advisory committee for the TPO. Mr. Bobby Ball. See if he can climb out. You're not sore from your golf game Saturday, are you?
No, I'm not. We did all right.
What'd you look at me for?
I had somebody putting for me all day long. He did a good job. So it took the pressure off. I only putted twice that day, so we're good.
And Jake, you bought how many mulligans?
All of them.
As many as they'd let us. Bobby Ball with the CSC for the TPO. We had our monthly meeting, and it was pretty standard type of meeting. We talked about the 5-year work program and the project priority list. But most importantly, I guess, the long-range transportation plan process is starting back up, and that'll be for the 2045 plan. And I volunteered to be on the subcommittee for that to help keep Port Orange projects at the top. So with that, any questions?
Questions, comments, anyone? Thank you, Bobby.
Thanks.
Thanks, Bobby.
Environmental Advisory Board appointment. We've got 1 appointment, 2 applicants. Are either of the applicants here? I know that we've got their bios. Neither of the applicants are here. Christina Berry and Michael Arminio are the applicants. We got 1 position. I'll accept the nominations.
Move to nominate Christina Berry.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other nominations? There being none, nominations are closed. Well, I guess we have an up or down vote. Call the roll for approval of Christina Berry.
Councilwoman Ford,
Yes.
Councilman Stillman,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Trayloff,
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 4-0. She's hired. Wait till she sees her benefits. Construction Regulation Board appointment. We are reconstituting this board. We have 5 openings and 5 applicants. Would any of the applicants who are here wish to come speak to us, tell us why they want the job, or to talk us out of it? Yeah, I'm looking at you.
Dick Smith, ICI Homes. Staff made me aware there was a need, and I'm happy to serve. Been in the city for over 20 years, been working for ICI Homes for over 20 years, been in the industry for over 30, and I'm happy to serve.
Okay.
Thanks for stepping up.
We had Michael Anderson, Lance Green, Kent Curtin, and Keith Rama, and Mr. Dick Smith for the 5 applicants. Jake, why are we reconstituting this board?
We came up with a construction building issue this year for the first time in, 5, 6, 7 years. And this board is, has kind of lied fallow for that long. So we're reconstituting a new board to hear this one case and hopefully stay active in case we have any more cases. I imagine as the building increases here in Port Orange that this will could be something that we see a little bit more and more of.
I know that we look for, and according to the language, a construction regulation board is to consist of contractors registered with the city or qualified electors residing in the city.
Yes.
We have 5 board members to elect, and we have 5 applicants. I'll accept nominations now.
I'll motion to nominate all the 5 applicants on the agenda.
Second.
We have a motion, second. Do we have any additional nominations out of the blue?
Do I need to read them name by name, or is that sufficient enough?
Michael Anderson, Lance Green, Kent Curtin, Ankit Rama, and Richard Smith. That was your motion?
Yeah, Ankit Rama was the name that I hesitated to pronounce, so
I gave it the go.
appreciate it.
Any other nominations? Nominations are now closed. Call the roll.
Councilwoman Ford,
Yes.
Councilman Stiltner,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Tremont,
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 4-0. Wait till they see our benefits package. This brings us to the public hearing portion of the meeting. The public hearing on item 21, the second reading of ordinance number 2019-17 is now open. Ordinance number 2019-17 is an ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, providing for and authorizing the issuance by the city of its private college facility revenue bonds, Palmer College Chiropractic Project, Series 2019B, in aggregate principal amount not to exceed $19 million, and for a loan by the city to Palmer University Foundation, an Iowa not-for-profit corporation, an equal principal amount to finance the cost of refunding the outstanding City of Port Orange, Florida tax-exempt revenue note, Series 2010 Palmer College Project, providing that said revenue note shall not constitute a debt, liability, or obligation of the city, but shall be payable solely from the revenues herein provided, authorizing a negotiated sale and award of said bonds to U.S. Bank National Association, approving and authorizing the execution and delivery of certain documents, providing certain other details in connection therewith, and providing for an effective date.
Motion to approve ordinance number 2019-17.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Jake, you want to recap that real quick?
Yes, sir. A couple weeks before the council meeting before first reading, we had members of Palmer, including bond counsel, come and brief the refinancing, if you will, of these Series 2010 tax-exempt bonds, using the city as a pass-through, if you will. First reading was last council meeting. We discussed a few items there. A few items were brought up by citizens. We have our bond counsel, Peter Dame and Alan Rosen here, as well as me, to address any concerns council or the public may have that need to be addressed.
Second reading, council comments or questions? We'll start with you, Scott.
I don't have anything additional.
Chase?
Nothing.
Marilyn?
None.
Okay. Would anyone here care to speak to this item? There being none, any final comments?
I think he was going to speak.
Peter Dame.
You gonna come up here, earn your salary, and try to talk us out of it?
Good evening. My name is Peter Dame. I'm with the firm of Ackerman in Jacksonville, Florida, and we have served as bond counsel of the city for more years than I care to say, but we are here to represent you. We have worked with Palmer College on this transaction.
I would just like to add a couple of things to the record if I could to respond to some of the questions that came from the public, if I have your indulgence for a minute. The rating agencies are fully aware of the type of financing this is, and that's a conduit financing. Industrial revenue bonds are an economic tool, development tool. The primary benefit to the college is that they get a lower interest rate because the interest on the bonds is tax exempt. There's no subsidy coming in and of itself from the city. There is a subsidy coming from the federal tax code, and that's why it's beneficial for them to use the city as a conduit issuer. There are no city revenues or assets pledged to this. And the rating agencies recognize that, and it will not affect the rating of the city. Other than that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have on the financing.
Scott, any questions?
No, good, thank you for coming though, appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Chase, Marilyn?
No.
Thank
Looks
you.
like you're off the hook.
Thanks, Peter.
Any other final comments, council? There being none, call the roll.
Councilwoman Ford,
Yes.
Councilman Stelner,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Tremont,
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 4-0. Public hearing on that item is now closed. Moving on to the public hearing for second reading of ordinance number 2019-18. This one is going to be a little easier to read. An ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, rezoning property consisting of approximately plus or minus .34 acres from Volusia County R5 Single Family Residential to NP Neighborhood Preservation, located at 119 House Street, authorizing revision of the official zoning atlas and providing for an effective date.
Motion to approve ordinance number 2019-18.
May I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. And this is the item that helps get the American Legion's rebuild project going, yes? Yes.
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 Everybody nod their head this way. With that, I just wanted to say if anybody want to help them, most of us have probably heard that that post suffered a tragic fire earlier in the year. They're trying to rebuild. They're committed to rebuilding in the current spot. And I think it's a terrific opportunity for them to modernize their facility for those that serve. But in doing so and having to come up to current code is very difficult for them. So if there's anybody out there that feels so inclined out of the generosity of their hearts, I'm sure that they would love to hear from you. That being said, any questions, council? Marilyn?
None.
Chase? Scott? Anyone here care to speak to this item? There being none, final comments, any? Call the roll.
Councilwoman Ford,
Yes.
Councilman Stelner,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Tremont,
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 4-0. Brings us to ordinance number 2019-19.
Mayor, before
Ma-
you proceed on this one, for this particular one, I'm thinking this would be best to have the entire council seated for this. And so I'd like to see if we could entertain a motion. I'll make a motion to table this
Second.
till July 16th. Is that the date, Jake? That you're
I concur, yes,
Okay.
July 16th. That's when everybody's
That's the
back,
next
and
time
I can adequately address Councilman Ford's concerns if she has any and brief her on it. And she does have questions. I haven't answered them yet. And it'll give an opportunity for Councilman Bastian to get back as well.
Was that an official motion already?
It was?
Okay. To amend it or to agree on the 16th.
We have a motion and a second to table the item to date certain of July 16th. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item is tabled until July 16th. Brings us to first reading of ordinance number 2019-20. I like it when they're short to read.
Exciting.
An ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, relating to comprehensive planning, amending the future land use map of the comprehensive plan, amending the future land use designation for plus or minus 4.4 acres to the office residential transition to commercial, providing for conflicting ordinances, severability, and an effective date.
Motion to approve ordinance number 2019-21.
You mean
Dash 20?
2019-20? You're ahead of yourself.
Mine says dash 21 for
Item 24?
item 24.
Well, I just read 2019-20, so I'm looking for a motion to approve 2019-20.
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second.
How does mine say 21?
Good evening, Penelope Cruz, Planning. Maybe Councilman Tremont was reading my mind. I was going to ask if you wanted to also open the following item to ordinance 2009-21. They're both related. That way we can discuss them both freely, and then you can have a separate vote at the end on each item.
Point of order, Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to also open item 25.
Well, let me
ordinance
go ahead and read the ordinance, and then I'll accept your motion.
29-21.
Oh, I
Please
see the
do.
recommended motion I was reading. That's right.
An ordinance of the city, ordinance number 2019-21 is an ordinance of the city of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, rezoning plus or minus 4.4 acres located at 904 and 908 Taylor Road from professional office, PO, to community commercial, CC, authorizing revision of the official zoning atlas and providing for an effective date. I'll take your motion now.
Make a motion to also open this item to be discussed in conjunction with item 24.
Second.
And to approve it?
And to approve it.
We have a motion and a second. Both items
Yes, sir.
on the floor for you.
I was reading your recommended motion.
It was
That's
the
where,
force, right?
that's where we
Yeah,
got. That's
okay.
what it is.
All right. All right, good
Mayor,
evening. The subject,
Can you call it to a vote?
I did.
Oh,
And to approve.
Didn't hear your vote on it.
No,
We
we,
didn't vote to come back.
We got it.
We're going after that. I'm back here.
He's with us now.
all right. How y'all doing tonight? The
with the
subject,
program.
Take it away.
4.4 acre property is located at the southwest corner of Taylor Road and Boxford. It includes both the Port Orange Christian Church property as well as the vacant adjacent parcel to the west. They've come together and applied for both the future land use and rezoning applications as a joint application. As some of you may know, the Port Orange Christian Church is in the process of relocating and would like to sell their property and their land to fund the development of the new site. The amendment area is an area that is considered infill development. It is located in an existing commercial node that is surrounded by existing development with access to existing infrastructure. The city has planned for and designated commercial nodes at intersections at major roads in the future land use element in the comprehensive plan. In this case, the amendment area is part of the I-95 Dunlawton Avenue Taylor Road Regional Commercial Node. The applicant is requesting this amendment in order to designate a future land use category and zoning category that better reflects the development pattern surrounding this existing commercial node. The applicant's application is also intended to expand the number of non-residential uses on the property in order to facilitate the sale of the property and redevelopment. But one thing I'd like to note is, although the amendment expands the uses, going from a mixed-use category that allows office, multifamily, and commercial uses to the standard general commercial category. They're doing so to be easier to sell, like we said, standard commercial category that everybody kind of understands, rather than the mixed-use category. It does expand the option for the uses that are available to be built on it, but it does reduce the amount of square footage that can be built. The way intensity or square footage is calculated for non-residential properties is called a floor area ratio, comparing the amount of floor area you can build to the area of the site. And that floor area ratio for the proposed category is less than what the current future land use is. So it opens up the range of categories that can be built there, uses, but it decreases the amount of square footage that can be built there.
So
By how much?
I gotta pull up my staff report, quite significant amount. So in table 2, I think it was, hold on one second. In table 3, I'm sorry, of the future land use staff report, you'll see that there's a decrease by potentially over almost 290,000 square feet based on the different scenarios that can play out. It's a mixed-use category, so you have to analyze 2 different scenarios that can play out. So it's a pretty significant decrease in the amount of square footage that can be built.
It maintains the mixed-use possibilities, right?
No, it's taking that away. It's changing from the mixed-use category that allows office, commercial, and multifamily, and they're asking to apply just the general commercial, which is like a standard commercial category that you see in all the commercial nodes. So just a regular standard commercial category, not the mixed-use category. And it's a decrease in square footage that's allowed, and in doing so, in decreasing the allowed of square footage, it therefore decreases the theoretical impacts to public infrastructure and services as well. So you can see on the map here the proposed future land use amendment, and then similarly the proposed rezoning, which is the second item. They're requesting to go to from professional office to community commercial. Again, that's the standard kind of community level commercial category that you see at many intersections throughout the city.
Hang on one second. I just want to go back to this. You said it reduces the traffic volume and whatnot?
Yeah, when you're looking at this level, because there's not an actual development proposed today, they're requesting at this level to change the future land use category and the zoning category. So the analysis we have to do is based on theoretical maximum that's allowed. The specific impacts will be analyzed once somebody actually comes in to propose a development, and that'll get thoroughly analyzed through the development review process and concurrency reviews, et cetera. But at this level, we have to review the theoretical maximum, the maximum if they were to fully build out what can be allowed. The current categories on the property allow for a much greater square footage than what the proposed categories are. And so because you're allowing for less square footage, it therefore leads to less impacts on all public infrastructure. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does, but I sort of have to be convinced that less square footage automatically means fewer people and fewer traffic going in there.
I mean, you'll never know the exact number until there's an actual development. At this level, you have to analyze the theoretical numbers, and that's what there's no other answer to that but yes.
Yeah.
Less square footage always equals less. That significant, especially that significant amount of decrease in square footage will always yield less impacts.
All right, so this change would fit into our smart growth.
Yes, especially since
policies.
it's an infill site. You're using existing infrastructure that's there. It's part of an existing commercial node that's been in our comprehensive plan for a very long time, since the 90s. So definitely would fit into the tenets of smart growth.
And that's why
So-
I'm asking, because I
So
want to
keep this in mind, and we'll have this definition war of what smart growth is, but the tenets or the principles of smart growth are multifaceted. One of them is mixed use. One of them is vertical growth. And I've never heard anybody say anything nice about vertical growth here in Port Orange recently. One of them is infill of existing communities, developing existing communities. This project fits into that principle of growth, but it takes away from mixed use, which is also a principle of the official community development definition of what smart growth is. So you're taking away one to get another. I think we will find, if you want to talk about smart growth, and I've started to add it into the commentary, is that just the culture of Port Orange at this point, based on citizen input. I think once we define smart growth, if we take the professional association's definition of what smart growth is, I don't think that's what most of the vocal citizens of Port Orange want. Their definition of smart growth is well, somebody said it earlier, no growth, but smart growth is use your head before you do it. And I do believe that this project is that, because you're theoretically limiting density.
I appreciate you speaking to that, Jay, because that's one of the questions that you hit on exactly what my concern was. We're taking away mixed use, but still give another option. I'm asking these questions, and I'm not opposed to this, but I want to ask these. I want these out front because this is an area. You talk about a bottleneck area. Nobody's going to want anything going there that's new. So I always want to just tread very cautiously.
And I will, for the public and for council, when we're talking about development, Tim and I have already talked, but we'll start adding how these projects fit into the developer's official smart growth one of the principles. And
You've
if
already
they
done
don't,
that in the weekly.
I did that in the weekly, and I did it here in the commentary. And there's a few other feedback items that Councilwoman Ford brought up that we'll be adding to the summary as well to make sure that things are addressed, and it's all good feedback. So we'll start providing that and just kind of for those very questions.
No, thanks,
as this smart growth thing develops with the round table and throughout the
So
county.
as we were saying, there is not an actual proposed redevelopment of this site at this point. The applicants are just requesting to change the future land use and the zoning to make it more marketable. However, just like all development projects, when a development is proposed, it will have to go through the full development review process, the technical review by the DRC, and it'll have to go through the concurrency review. The staff is in the process right now of already setting up some proportionate fair share transportation projects that for this area to kind of help because this portion of Taylor Road is a constrained facility. So we have to look at multimodal type of solutions. One of which we're looking at is a turn lane on Taylor Road to Bogsford, as well as some intersection improvements at Taylor and Clyde Morris. So these are just some examples of things we're already planning for. And when this property does come forward to be redeveloped, there's an actual site plan proposed. Based on the transportation impact analysis, they will have to contribute to that or build a portion of it.
Well, that was going to be another question, is that we have room to add lanes
Yeah, we've
in
got
there.
some right-of-way we're getting, and so we're working on some of those the improvements where we can. There's not enough right-of-way to do a full widening, but there's improvements we can make at certain intersections and turn lanes to help that traffic flow better.
And that would, you still have a hard time going all the way down, but that's a conversation for a later day. Is there any conservation area that's affected over here?
At this point, it's just changing from one mixed-use category to commercial. The areas to be preserved would happen with a detailed level analysis with a site plan. So they'll have to follow all our standard tree preservation and conservation requirements in our land development code when there's actually a development proposed.
You good? Scott?
I appreciate Chase's comments. Well thought out. Some of this is, there's a certain amount of unknown here for sure. I hate to use another restaurant analogy, but if you put a Chick-fil-A there, Chase, they're gonna be wrapped around the building, right? Parking lot can be full all the time. Where some other restaurants, maybe not so much, even though they fit the same footprint. So a lot of it just depends on what ultimately ends up there and what the popularity of that is. I have the concerns in this area too. I think we should, this is a problem area for us. Let's face it. We get a lot of traffic congestion and a lot of issues that lay around this particular geographical location of our city. So we definitely need to be mindful of that and move forward. But I think this is the right step to take at this time for sure.
Marilyn?
No comments.
This, and anything like this is always difficult when you're trying to make a decision about something and you have no idea what's going to go there. But at the same time, there has to be zoning in place for it, and somebody owns it. So something's going to happen. So we are indeed making some decisions based on theory, and there's no doubt about it. But if you don't, you can get in trouble going that way too. We talked earlier about junk lawsuits. There's certainly Bert Harris lawsuits are not junk lawsuits. They cost cities tons and tons of money. So you have to do the due diligence, but you have to have zoning and you have to have the future land use amendments in place that are consistent. One thing that I can say about this property is this is also one that's coming back onto the tax rolls. And when you have good, smart commercial development adding to the tax base, that makes us less dependent on our residents to provide them the services we want to. So that's part of the balancing act as well.
One more question there. if I could.
Go ahead.
Can you give me a couple examples of what is allowed to go there right now?
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I think I
Oh, right
interrupted
now or
you
with the
earlier.
proposed rezoning?
With the, right now, what's allowed to go there, and then perhaps a few examples of what can go in there in the proposed rezoning.
Oops. Did the wrong thing.
Sometimes you give
So
an
the
example to some folks that can
so
help.
Per the future land use, one thing, let me just kind of move back on this real quick, just talk about, as the mayor was just talking about with regards to what the state law requires. So there's a current future land use category called office residential transition currently on the property that allows a lot more than what the current zoning on that property allows. The state law allows them, they have the right to apply to rezone to maximize that future land use category. So although their current zoning limits the property right now to develop to what the professional zoning, professional office zoning category allows, which is mostly office type uses, their future land use category allows a lot more. Their future land use category currently allows office, institutional, multifamily, and commercial uses in a mixed use format, multi-story, and they have the right to apply to rezone to maximize that per state law. What they're looking to rezone to is the community commercial zoning district, and here's just a list, this was also in the staff report, of some of the uses that are allowed. Again, ultimately, everything would have to go through. Everything would have to go through the DRC process. They'd have to have adequate buffers, meet concurrency requirements and things like that, site design. So.
This is what's currently allowed
No,
there.
this is what the proposed zoning allows.
Okay. Can you provide a couple examples of what can currently?
Currently, it's mostly an office, banks, things like that, medical offices, the house of worship that's there right now. So that's generally the zoning category. But like I said, the future land use category that's currently there allows a lot more, and they have the right to upzone to maximize that to allow a mixed use development right now.
Any other comments or questions, council? There being none, let's hear from the public.
I was going to say, one thing I just wanted to get on the record because it's a little bit different. When you have a future land use amendment, you have to go through the Volusia Growth Management Commission review. So I just wanted to put on the record that second reading will not be at the next council meeting. Second reading will take place on August the 6th after the Volusia Growth Management Commission certification. The applicant is also here and I believe has a presentation that they'd like to give.
Because we are government and we can't do anything fast, can we? Come on up.
Appreciate it, Penny. See if I can talk you out of this real quick, so. All right.
Don't do that.
No, I don't. Well, I just wanted to
Just
add.
paying attention.
Yeah, I'm trying to complement what Penny was trying to, explain, because I understand where maybe some of the rub is with, what's being proposed, because you really are working in hypotheticals, and that's kind of the imperfect art of planning. Because you kind of have to guess a little bit, but it's educated, and you take your best shot at it, and good intentions, and that's what we're here to do, because you currently have it where you got about 4.4 acres of property with the transitional zoning. There is some potential for a medical office type use that Penny had identified that could go upwards of a 1.5 floor area ratio, which is that hypothetical maximum. And any use of this property will probably see redevelopment because of just the nature of a house of worship, because the only real end user for a house of worship is typically another house of worship. So that probably will be the realistic approach if you try to redevelop this property. And also too, to keep in mind is that the church, when they bought this property back in '92, it was a very different situation. It's a very rural area that it made a little more sense why you'd have the church out there versus what's grown up around it, which is it is a major commercial corridor that there's a lot of businesses out there, and it's thriving, and there are some growth issues in terms of how traffic's accommodated and things like that. But I think everybody would accept that this is a commercial area. And I went ahead and pulled some old aerials to kind of illustrate the point of what it looks like versus what today, and it's very different. But this is it's today versus '93. Just to give you an example of what we are looking at. Part of this, like Penny had identified, is part of the marketability, but I do want to highlight that there is good planning aspects involved with this, and that commercial makes sense here, and that a limited commercial is kind of the goal, and the church, and to be fully transparent here, is they've outgrown their facility, that they need somewhere new, and going to Taylor Road, where their new site is proposed, is the goal. And this is an example of the rendering that was prepared of what they're trying to achieve, and obviously parting with some other assets like this piece of property is a piece to that they have to recoup some of that investment so they can grow to a bigger facility.
Have you ever thought about the corner of Madeline and Williamson?
Oh yeah, it's very nice.
Just checking.
Don't get me going.
Just checking.
He knows how to press my button.
Councilwoman Ford brought it up. I said that might be worth a plug.
And I do not mind passing along the message, so that's no problem.
It looks eerily familiar.
I appreciate all of Penny's work and staff that they found it consistent, and that it does make sense that there are smart growth aspects to this. I know that's becoming the buzzword, that we're talking about how this is an infill development, that this does have some commercial aspects which make sense, and that a traditional mixed use may not, because it's different flavors for where you're at. It's not a one size fits all when it comes to planning. And that was the same approach that the Planning Commission saw too. So we were happy that so far we're resonating a little bit when it comes to what we're trying to accomplish here. And some of the things that Penny identified in terms of you're reducing the floor area ratio, so that hypothetical maximum comes down. That you are expanding some of the uses in commercial. To keep in mind that some of the uses that may be permitted obviously do require another approval from you guys in terms of special exceptions, which is not what we're here to do. So, I think that the list is, just, there's a guide point of what we're talking about in terms of uses, and the example I like to give is, the adjoining owner who had joined this piece of property was, he's looking to potentially have a sales office and maybe a sandwich shop kind of stacked together, and we're trying to figure out from a planning perspective, how do we make that work? And what we came up and talked to staff, and we said, the better way to approach this is that if this was commercial, that's a no-brainer, because it makes sense, the uses make sense, that you got it, the development goes in as long as it meets all of the city code requirements in terms of buffers, landscaping, and all of the other requirements. So you eliminate that unknown, because when you're talking mixed use, it's mixed use for you versus mixed use for me may be a little different, and commercial, it's a very set, and that it makes sense when you're in a commercial node that it's all commercial. And you're even reducing the trips in terms of what hypothetical maximum could be, that the peak trips could be hypothetically reduced by almost 300. That there is a good planning benefit to this application, and that there's no attempt to avoid any of the mitigation that would be required in terms of studies that have to come forward to you guys, a site plan that needs to be approved by you guys, in terms of what their fair share and contribution would be to any improvements that are required from their development. So that's something that this will come back, whatever the end user is.
Question, Jake, just my curiosity, where it says reduces the maximum density, intensity by almost 100,000 square feet. Does that mean that it can reduce the amount of impervious ground on there?
I'm unable to answer that right now. We'd have to see what goes there before we could.
I guess it would depend on whether you go up or out.
Right.
So.
Yeah. I could build a parking lot that.
Yeah.
Right.
Pretty much wipes it out. So.
I guess that is true. That if you potentially go out, that
depends on
in terms of your footprint.
It depends on what gets built.
Right. But again, you'd have to. The other land development code requirements would buffer against that, because you've got to somehow figure out where your where your landscaping goes, where your storm water.
Mm-hmm.
So
well, that's what I'm asking for.
So
Okay.
Exactly. The same thing with the future land use, that it's just more it's a flexibility that is consistent with what the neighboring uses are. So, that's what we're trying to accomplish here. And again, it's the mitigation of the impacts has to happen, and that, that's something that has to come back to you at a later date. And that's essentially everything in a nutshell, and that this is good planning, and that there are smart growth aspects to this that do make sense. And I'm here for any questions you guys may have in addition to what Penny has already described, and I'll make myself available. So,
Council comments or questions?
No more?
Let's hear from the public. Anyone here care to speak to this item? Come on, Robert.
Briefly, could you have him introduce himself? I don't know who he is.
You need to come up here and introduce yourself and that. No.
that's Joey Posey, attorney at Glenn Storch's office and attorney for the applicant. I apologize. I spaced when I didn't even think about that. I get so excited.
Thank you. Who else?
Let's go.
Anyone else other than Tom? Come on, Tom. Come on.
Good evening, Tom Jordan, 5400 South Williamson. For those of you, many of you know, I'm on the Planning Commission. I'm not speaking from the Planning Commission itself. We see these types of projects more and more coming before us, and obviously they hit us before they hit you guys.
Mm-hmm.
I look at this and I say this is a good thing because it reduces the density, reduces the traffic count, and particularly in that area, we're right at the edge of limitations based on the traffic counts and the quality of service of the roads. And the challenge always is we approve these with the perceived benefit that we're reducing the amount of traffic that could be there. Mm-hmm. The perception by the public, the 60,000 people that aren't paying attention and those that drive by there, is the day that you get the first piece of construction equipment on site, is they're saying, there goes Port Orange developing again. They don't care. They don't look at this. They don't realize at that point that we reduced it by 100,000 square feet from what could have been there and reduced the traffic count. And if there was any way you could present that to everybody so that when they get on Nextdoor and Facebook and all the other social media sites and complain, somebody could say, by the way, we just cut the traffic and the square footage. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Tom. Anyone else care to speak to this item? No? Back to us. Council, questions or comments? I don't see any. With that, call the roll.
Councilwoman Ford?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Penny.
Look who's still here.
We need to call the roll. Call the roll on item 24, ordinance 2019-20 first.
Councilwoman Ford?
Yes.
Councilman Stiltner?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Tremont?
Yes.
Mayor Burnett?
Yes, 4-0. Call the roll for ordinance number 2019-21.
Councilwoman Ford?
Yes.
Councilman Stiltner?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Tremont?
Yes.
Mayor Burnett?
Yes, 4-0. That's why we function as a team. We all keep each other in check. We got this. Thank you. That brings us to item 26, which I just overshot here.
Yeah, I did too.
There we go. Item 26 is resolution number 19-22, the 1389 Reed Canal Road Brownfield Area Designation Request. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, designating the property located at 1389 Reed Canal Road in the City of Port Orange as a brownfield area for the purpose of environmental remediation, rehabilitation, and economic development, directing the city clerk to notify the Florida Department of Environmental Protection or said designation, and providing for an effective date.
Motion to approve resolution 19-22.
Can I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. The item is on the floor. And if anybody ever drove by there 20 years ago and they were burning tires on that property, you'd know exactly what they're talking about. Go ahead, Penny.
Penelope Cruz Planning. So we had a discussion about it at the last meeting. This is a different kind of resolution. You have to actually have 2 hearings for it per the Brownfield statute. So I'm just here to answer any questions you might have. Kind of went over everything at the last meeting. I guess for Councilman Ford's benefit, the area in green was already designated as a brownfield back in 2000 and when was that? Long time ago, 8 or 9. And then this piece was annexed in last year into the city. And so they're just looking to also apply that brownfield designation to this piece. This is the piece that was actually really contaminated historically. And in an effort to continue the redevelopment of the overall site per the PUD that was approved last year as well. So.
I've always thought that that was a wonderful thing in the late 90s for the students at Atlantic High School to smell the
fire.
wonderful smell of burning tires.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that is long past. Comments or questions? Scott?
I don't have anything.
Chase? Marilyn?
None.
Anyone here care to speak to this item? There being none, back to us. Final comments or questions? Call the roll.
Councilwoman Ford,
Yes.
Councilman Stillner,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Tremont,
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 4-0. Brings us to item 27. First reading of ordinance number 2019-22. An ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, amending Chapter 58 of the Code of Ordinances to establish a new Section 58-4, setting forth the authority and procedures for the issuance of trespass warnings for public property, providing for codification, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Motion to approve ordinance number 2019-22.
Second.
We have a motion second. Jake, who's presenting?
I defer to Matt Jones.
Okay.
Trespassing law. Did I catch you by surprise there, Matt?
Yeah.
He's trying to get the green light on.
Yeah, trespass. So this ordinance gives the city staff the ability to trespass from public properties, such as your parks, and we know that you guys have been investing a lot of money down there. It creates some due process safeguards for us to be able to do that. This is an ordinance we've kind of borrowed from some of our colleagues out there. It's been tried, so it's been challenged and been upheld. And we think it's a good opportunity for you to correct some of the issues that we have with recidivism out there, and that folks, somewhat minor ordinance violations, when making its way through the court system, turns out to be kind of a revolving door, and we see the individual back, within a day or two, doing the same thing. So this gives you a little bit more teeth in that. That same individual, once trespassed for violating those kind of ordinances that you already have on the books to keep your parks nice and clean, will now be prosecuted for a more severe crime of trespass. And it won't be such a revolving door and only an ordinance violation fine amount. So that's what we have here before you today.
Scott, why don't we start with you?
I think it's a good idea to give our police department and our Parks and Rec staff a good tool to help maintain the quality level of our parks and a safe environment. I look at our whole city just as an extension of our own properties, and so I know how people feel about their private properties and being able to maintain those and have some civility there and keep people from doing things that disrupt that quality of life that we're looking for. And so for our parks to keep them, looking nice and keep the environment that we're looking for, I think it's a good tool to have.
Chase?
Yeah, I think it's a no-brainer, common sense approach to what we need to do with keeping our parks safe. I do have some concerns with it. I'll support this, but I'd like you to address this if you could. My concern is, how do you and you've said that it's been challenged, it's been held up. I'd like to know what the subject of the challenge was and what the rationale for keeping it, because it's hard for people to grasp around their heads that, wait a second, this is a public park. How can you tell me I'm trespassing? My taxes pay for this. I mean, we're allowed here. We're not allowed to kick off, to ask, you know, a homeless person, to leave the park because of the Pottinger laws unless we have a viable place. So I'm curious as to how we can implement this legally, and be within the law.
Yeah, so, you know, just because a property's open to the public doesn't mean you get to do whatever you want to do on that property. And it is difficult to trespass an individual from public property, and that's been something we've, you know, in the legal field struggled with, and we've talked about there's got to be reasonable parameters. It can't be a permanent trespassing. You'll see built into that ordinance is there still is limitations. So I can't say, hey, you messed up, you know, you didn't wear the right shoes at this park, so you're gone forever. It's something that's going to be limited in duration. It can go even longer if we end up having to do it another time, but it'll never be a permanent trespass. And there's also due process built into the ordinance that would give that individual the right to present their side of whatever the event that led to the trespass. So we have to provide those protections in order to comply with the law, and we've done all that in this ordinance.
I'm still, go ahead.
Just make clear up. Can you speak to, so with regard to trespass, I think a lot of people think of a typical, there's a piece of property and it's posted no trespassing, you go on there. This is actually a trespass after a warning. Maybe you could speak to that a little bit about how that kind of a scenario would play out. So somebody is in the park, Matt, jump in, but somebody's in the park, they've done something, they've violated some
Drinking.
ordinances. Yeah, drinking. And you know, we've tried other alternative measures to curb that type of an environment and activity. And so this gives them the legal authority to say, John Doe, we're going to hereby give you a warning of trespass. You are not allowed to come back to this particular park or property for the X amount of time that's designated. And if you do, at that point, they actually get arrested for trespass. So they don't necessarily get arrested for the trespass that day.
Exactly.
Explain how we can give a warning of trespassing when they're on there at that time. They're violating an ordinance, I get it, but how are we jumping from you can't drink in the park, but now I'm giving you a warning for trespassing, so explain that for me.
Yeah, so after you give the citation for drinking in the park, you've broken one of our rules to be on the public property.
Okay.
We have to have those rules in place so everybody can enjoy the property. If we didn't have any rules in place that we were able to enforce, what we ultimately result in is this revolving door where we have a guy, you know, drinking in public, and you know, then you have parents calling and saying, you know, I don't want to walk around the lake when this guy's over here drunk and with 6 cans next to him. We have this. It seems to be the same thing over and over. We have the littering, the drinking in public, these same types of crimes, and really this is the only way to
So they got to commit an infraction first.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're not trespassing until you commit the infraction. And
It's not
even,
arbitrary and capricious.
No, I don't like those words. You know, the whole, even in the trespass form, it's something the chief and I have worked on. We've kind of adapted it again from another agency that we've seen do this. On that form itself, you have the right to contest this. You know, we're given that opportunity to say, okay, you know, we want to hear your side of the story too, and we put those procedural guidelines in place so that, you know, we can, you know, provide for that protection before we go to a level of, hey, next time we come out after you've been trespassed, like Councilman Zoller says, next time it's the real deal. You're getting arrested for trespass.
And we do have in our city repeat offenders. And you're thinking parks, but all public lands, right? So you have a guy that does, or gal that does something, and we give them a citation, and they will come back and do the same thing the next day. And I have citizens and council members saying, can't we do anything? Well, here's anything. We are bringing you anything. So this isn't the nuclear approach, but this is a step on the way to allow our police officers, our Parks and Rec, and our staff to have problems addressed and get these people. They're not going to stop what they're doing, but they're going to stop what they're doing at that location.
Can this apply to dealing with panhandling?
No, panhandling is not prohibited.
Not the
suppose,
act of panhandling.
no, not the
Oh,
act of panhandling.
Not the act of panhandling.
Suppose
but
I've got a,
panhandlers that engage
Yeah.
in these
Any,
activities.
Suppose I've got a
anybody
panhandler
that
that-
breaks a law on
Right.
public property
Absolutely.
and then-
repeatedly.
Yeah, so if he's, say we got a panhandler that has an open container there, okay, he's,
For litters.
yeah.
Drinking,
for
littering,
litters.
blocking access.
Now,
Absolutely.
that particular person, he can't come back to that spot.
You got
So,
it.
so Councilman Tremont,
Yeah.
don't segregate out panhandlers. Anybody, anybody.
No, I'm looking
They're,
for.
they're just one of them.
Yeah, I'm looking for places that it can be applied to.
Anywhere, by anybody. Yeah. If your city manager's doing any of that stuff, he can be trespassed to anybody.
Yeah, I asked about panhandling because that's what I hear about.
Well, they're just one of 65,000 people that are around town. I just don't want you to
I
think
think
that
the
this
city
trespassing.
staff is trying to stay on good legal footing, but
This
but
is
we
not-
all know that this is a tool.
This is a tool for everybody.
Right.
I know who the problem children are, but and I told you
I
that
see
about
where-
the blocking the sidewalk
I
too.
see where you're at.
Anybody that blocks the sidewalk and doesn't move is guilty. Anybody that walks, if we have a panhandler walking in the street, we have a safety issue. If I have I'm sorry, Chief Fuston, but if I have a firefighter with a boot walking in the street collecting money, happen in Norfolk, Virginia all the time, I've got the same problem. It's a safety thing. It's not get rid of the panhandler and let the firefighters do their thing. It's people in the street. It's a safety issue. So this is a repeat offender in public places issue. You've hit the nail on the head who the repeat offenders are, but it applies to everybody.
I'm with you.
Marilyn?
I think it's a reasonable solution to address what are persistent violators. I'm in favor of it.
I agree, and I think it, particularly with certain individuals who engage in the activity of panhandling and the other things that they do, it's not necessarily the panhandling itself that becomes an issue. It's the blocking the sidewalk, it's the littering, it is the drinking, the behaviors that we don't accept, whether it be panhandlers or others. This is very frustrating for me. It really is, because I hear about it all the time. We got a city to the north that solved their problem with their 40 or so panhandlers, and we've got 4 consistent ones. And they can be real thorns in our sides. And believe me, Jake, if there are any other tools, I cannot wait to sign and approve this after second reading on July 16th, because I can't believe that you're going to wait any longer to get us a second reading. Any tools that you need that you feel can help you, by goodness, bring it to us. I am not going to spend $800,000 like another city did to solve this problem, but I am going to give you what you need. You just got to ask.
I don't know if it was that much, but yeah, well, we're here for you. And we'll continue ratcheting down.
Anyone here care to speak to this item? Come on.
Robert Reinhagen, 1425 Dexter Drive, North, Port Orange. My question has to do with the blocking the sidewalk thing. Over at the school, people park on the sidewalk in order to pick up their kids.
Mm-hmm.
Would that be considered violation of an ordinance, and could they be
Yes.
warned? They could be.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, and the option is they stay in the roadway, and that's also a violation.
I
So,
know.
so move on would be the only acceptable answer if the school can't provide them an ample place to pull in.
And you'd get held for that. Thank you.
Who else?
I've got held before.
Hi, Kim McNew, Port Orange resident.
Hi,
So
Kim.
does this mean, I see parks, does this consist of the areas between the sidewalk and the road? Can they still sit there? In
Public
front of
right-of-ways?
fire hydrants? Is loitering a law?
So loitering, anybody can sit legally in any public area.
Even in front of a fire hydrant?
Sure.
What about verbal batteries?
Verbal batteries
I
is
guess
not
we can't use
a
the word
trespassing
panhandler,
word.
But can it, is that a crime in Port Orange?
So there's a lot, I see where you're going with that, and I understand totally.
Tremendous amount of
Your-
complaints
your-
every Sunday.
Your best way to address those is to bring them up to the police department, share with them your experiences, and we are working on ridding that. But I understand what you're talking about. But there are First Amendment rights, but they cannot pester you. And we're starting to address that. Matt, we've got laws for that, but
Well, I have clientele that are being verbally battered on Sundays, and being called filthy names in front of children and whatnot, and I just wondered what.
have you
we
reported
have-
to the police station yet? To
No, actually,
911?
and I, you know,
So
it's
that's
not.
probably the right
It's
place to
something
address
could
that.
be,
Call us, we'll help.
Yeah, just
Call us, we'll help.
call
Are
that.
these names that I should start acquiring from, say, customers that want to be a part of this?
Part of?
I mean, we don't know.
How
We
can I
don't
say
know.
this appropriately? To remove this menacing person from
D-
public?
Call 911 and work through the police department, and if this person's breaking the law,
Yeah.
if the person's breaking the law, they will give
Is there
them a.
such thing as a verbal battery?
No.
Again,
Thank you.
so.
That's all I needed to know.
A battery requires physical touching.
Okay.
What you're talking about is either disorderly conduct, disorderly intoxication, or assault.
Yeah.
But the key thing there, yeah, Kim, is that whenever somebody has an issue with any of those activities, if they can call right then and there, that's what really has to happen. Because what we see time and time again is people say, well, yesterday I was at this location and this happened. And that's good to still report it, don't get me wrong.
Mhm.
But it gives us a lot more
Trying to
opportunities.
accumulate.
Well, no, you don't necessarily
No,
have to
we
do that.
we
Each
show up.
individual
Each
one,
time
I
they
can
do come
appreciate
every
that.
Sunday, the
But
law
calling
does.
in real time is really gonna be the
Yeah.
best bet for
Okay.
that.
All right. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, please do.
Thanks.
Thank you,
Encourage to do
Kim.
that.
Who else? Anybody else? Back to us. Other comments? There being none, call a roll.
Councilwoman Ford,
Yes.
Councilman Stiltner,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Tremont,
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 4-0. City Attorney comments?
Not tonight.
Thank you. City Manager?
Great job.
Not so easy. We knocked the closed captioning conversation out, so, and I believe that I front-loaded at least Councilwoman Ford on a discussion that I was reminded to remind you all about, the boards that are double pumped with a council member right now, maybe redistributing the boards to include Councilwoman Ford. Right now, and I'll wait till official, but I'd like to go out to bid to lease motorcycles instead of buy them. I'm not looking for a vote because it's not on the agenda right now, but I'd like your thoughts on proceeding for that. We can start the process, but if you all have heartburn about it, we've done the cost analysis. It's about neutral. Or a little bit more to lease, but we find ourselves with one particular company stuck with how many lemons? Oh, Chief's talking, but I think 4 lemons right now.
We're talking about our police fleet.
Or our police fleet, yes. So we'd like to entertain going out to pre-bid for, or get the paperwork started and bring it to council for approval this year instead of buying motorcycles that we were supposed to buy this year. Change our plan, basically. So I'd like to get started with that, but I'd like your consensus that that's not a non-starter with council, since we'd be using 505, some 505 money for that.
That's been an area over the years you know, this period of time it's better to
Right.
lease, this period of time it's better to buy. It's gone back and forth, especially when we exclusively use the Harley Davidson brand, because at the time, you know, when you go back into the 90s, you could ride those things for 2 or 3 years. The city would sell them at auction and make money on them.
Right.
And that no longer is really the case, at least the last time I looked. So my thing would be is when you bring it back to us is weigh the maintenance factors of the lease program versus the purchase. 'Cause I
We'll-
think
we'll
typically
bring that
that's-
to you.
Yeah, that's usually where your costs are going to be most
Right.
relevant.
For
And
me,
you-
I'm
you all know what-
cost-benefit analysis.
Well,
Buying,
so-
leasing, to me is.
So cost benefit, you bought some pretty bikes a couple of years ago. I think they're all, we use them for nails or something now. They're falling apart and the company no longer exists. I'll gladly mention the company, but, so
I wouldn't declare any victory over that decision. Just-
I would. Well played, well played, well played. So we're gonna, unless this side of the dais here,
Well, is this something the police department's interested in?
yes, police department, finance, police department, no, I'm good, you good, I'm good. Finance department, city manager, I told the assistant city manager, he's on board. I'm just kidding, Public Works, Lynn, who's got the fleet maintenance. So we're all supportive of it, but we don't want to move forward and go, what the heck you guys doing? Because we are using a little bit of 505 money, which is replacement to lease.
Yeah. Okay.
I would be interested in knowing, even if the current motorcycles are not up to snuff, do they get sold at auction? What's the return on investment? The fiscal perspective
Well,
of
so
it.
sure, our non-Harley motorcycles are falling apart. The company no longer exists, so auction, don't know what you can do. But the lease right now, we'd like to do a long-term lease with and keep money in the 505. Should this lease not turn out as productive as we thought it was, that we can go back to buying and not come to you and go, oh, we screwed up, we need $500,000 to buy 7 new motorcycles. So our plan is to kind of hedge our bets that the lease is going to work, but keep some money in reserve in the 505 should it go south.
Is the benefit in leasing less cost on the maintenance?
We think it's going to be neutral or a slight bit more with less risk. Fewer headaches. Ease of maintenance, we still have to put them in a trailer and bring them over to the Harley dealership to get them taken care of. But we don't know what that deal would be yet.
But I mean, on some of these things, some of the maintenance is covered when you lease vehicles.
That's sure.
Right.
When I cannot put an officer on the back of a Victory motorcycle and get him out of the yard, it doesn't do me a bit of good.
We do pictures,
Did I say
right?
the name?
We do pictures with it.
Yeah.
Put it out front for the pictures.
That's about it.
All right. We'll move forward with that
Jake,
and
just
bring it to you.
Just a quick question on that, because I'm just kind of curious.
Sure.
I know with some purchases of fleet and things like that, we can piggyback other cities and kind of go. Can you do the same thing with lease programs on the motorcycles?
I don't
Or
know.
Not so much.
We'll check.
Okay.
I don't know.
Because I know some agencies get pretty good lease deals.
Yeah, well,
Some
absolutely.
Not so much.
Absolutely. Well, Jim Tillman and his purchasing team will start grinding the sausage on that. There's been a few questions. I joked about the Madeline Church, but a member of the Planning Commission, Tom Jordan, brought up a loophole in our commercial CPMP, our commercial code compliance program, and how there's a loophole. It might be an interpretation, it might be a loophole. Tim and the guys and gals in community development and the guys and gals in code enforcement are looking at that. But I want everybody to know that the code folks have leaned on the Madeline Church to comply, and they've always come within compliance at the last minute, save 2 or 3 times since 2005, 4 maybe. And I've shared with council, but I'll share with the public right now that ever since June 3rd, I believe, we have been leaning heavily on them. I think they have people on. Tim, do they have people on the ground right now? So we're leaning on them so hard that they are taking care of business on a much quicker timeline than they're obligated to do. And I think right now they violated code. They'll come in compliance before the magistrate, next magistrate will meet. But that, I guarantee you the magistrate will take that into account, but they have still had a code violation and they will still be probably accountable to that. He might mitigate some of the fine or all of it because they came in compliance, but I will be there, and Mayor, if I can get you there.
Told you I would be.
We will gladly speak on behalf of the city that look, this guy comes in at the last minute all the time and we're tired of it. He blew through this one and we request the maximum. I want this this developer, this property owner to be held accountable more so than ever before in this timeline, and convince him. And he's doing he's putting forth an effort to get in compliance ahead of the mandatory schedule. And we'll look at the CPMP and see if there's any problems with it and address it. But there are some commercial properties that don't yet have a CO that are in worse shape than I'm sure we want them to be. But we'll make sure that we can get there and get the people who have unimproved lots, if you will, to comply with ordinances and comply with code rather in a timely manner. And if we have to bulk that code up somewhat, we will. But too early to
You and I
tell.
have talked about this almost ad nauseum, and to me, I think the one perception a lot of people have is they look at the construction, what they're allowed to do, not allowed to do, as the same thing as the property upkeep, and it's not. They have
No.
a certain amount of time to get construction as proposed and permitted done. But as far as I'm concerned, as far as you're concerned, coming to code is something that's an always thing. And that
Correct.
And that's the standard that we want to hold them to.
Yes, sir.
Jacob, I'm going to ask you just two questions regarding
You
this. Can you speak to this? I've had a lot of complaints, at least questions from folks. Hey, are you guys fining them for code violations? How come we haven't been able to really be doing that for this particular property?
So, as I understand it, and I don't have the details right now, but as I understand it, every time we give them the notice of violation, you give them time to comply, and that's part of the due process, and they usually comply just in time. A couple times they failed to comply in time, and I think they came to the magistrate and you know, this was a couple of years ago. I don't know what the fine was, but it could have been $25 a day. They complied a day or two later, wrote a check for $50 or whatever the case may be, and been done with it. So it's an ebb and flow. Keep in mind that our code consists of 5, Chief? 6, 4 and 1 supervisor. So we didn't camp out at Madeline. There's 4 people for this city is getting skosh as far as getting things done. We're reactive, we're not proactive, and just like police, we can't camp out in one location, so we don't. And every time I call and say, take a look at Madeline, they go out there, they take a look, they talk to the owner, or tell him he's got a notice to comply. He complies 3-4 days later, and off to the races we go again. And he keeps it good for another couple months. Sometimes it's a broken window. We tell him there's a broken window. He'll go board it up or put a new window in, and a couple weeks later it's something else. You need a power wash. He'll power wash. and then 9, 10 months later, it's a green mess again, and we tell them to power wash, and he power washes. But I'm tired of being the steward of that property.
Yeah.
So now we do have people camping out there.
So, other questions, I think you sort of spoke to it, but can you highlight, what do you need, how do we avoid from ever having another eyesore like this again? And what do you need something specific from council, or is that?
We'll take a look at how the code's written for unimproved, is that the right term? Unimproved commercial lots. So when you buy a lot and it's commercial and it's not touched yet, what do we want it to look like? Now, not quite the same, but think about that cow pasture on Willow Run.
Oh, yeah.
If that property, if we hadn't allowed it to remain agricultural until it gets bought and talked about, even if it gets bought, it's going to get bought, somebody's going to change it to commercial, it's going to stay a cow pasture for a week or 3 or 4 or 5. That's commercial. You need to mow it, you need to put shrubs in, you need to do, are we going to hold that person accountable 2 months after? Are we going to let it grow up and be cow pasture like without any cows in it? So we have to look at the common sense part of that.
Right, and that's what I'm looking for, for example, the place next to Mellow Mushroom, something, they start building, and then all of a sudden, something happens. I don't want an area like that to turn into, the Madeline. So I'm just asking whatever you need from us to prevent
there are
that.
plenty of half-built buildings around this nation that remain half-built, ugly eyesore buildings. And it's unfortunate, but that's what we'll have to weed through. And if we need to address it via code and ordinances, we will.
Thanks.
Too early to tell. I think that's about it. It's up to you, Mayor. I'm in city manager comments. If we have a member that wants to speak.
You can speak on it, sure. I'll let you.
I apologize.
No, come on.
No,
It's
no,
not an
at
agenda
all.
item, so we don't normally do that, but if you want to, absolutely.
I just would like y'all to be a little bit aware. I've had this one on my list to research for quite some time. Kim McNew, Port Orange resident. I was blown away when I looked back into this property today and saw there were no code enforcement liens. I have currently cleaned up 2 code enforcement properties that had
Thank you, by the way.
compliances through these magistrate meetings. I don't know if any of y'all ever attend them. These compliances were false. This property was never in compliance. The people were dead. It was never in compliance. Got stacks of compliances that were never in compliance. I don't understand why there was never code enforcement liens, so I'm so proud of you for moving forward and holding them to that. What really disturbs me about this property, does anybody up there realize this is an income-bringing property with a cell phone tower?
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody know how much they make? I didn't have time to research. Is it $1 million a year? Is it
No.
100,000?
That's their business and their private
It's an
contract.
LLC. We can, it's the only property they own, it's the only business. I'll get that information. Isn't that irritating? They're making money.
Extremely.
They could be making $1 million a year and we've done
And
nothing
thumbing their
about it.
nose at the neighborhood in the process.
And they bought the property from a church who has some kind of laws and guidelines with these cell phone towers. So it goes into all these court documents where that all transferred and it all stinks. Their taxes were also cut in half when they bought this property. So I'll be going to the county tomorrow. But I appreciate you and I hope code follows up and these false compliances stop. Thank you for listening.
Thank you,
And
Kim.
I live a block past there, my cell phone service stinks over there.
I think they have you blocked.
Jake, you have anything else?
I do not.
First Step Shelter. Chase, anything going on with that?
Gosh, nothing new from last time. So nothing real
Is
new
the
to update.
projected opening date still September, is it?
We're still, I'm here in October. We're right now, I don't remember ever here in September. I think I've heard September, October time
Okay.
period. But yeah, nothing's been pushed back.
Okay.
To my knowledge. We picked up a couple of nice volunteers in there. We're not looking to hire an executive director at this time. We're going to take at least, my thought, and I think the rest of everybody agrees, take the advantage of the City of Daytona allowing Dr. Durham to kind of be the go-between between us and Catholic Charities and the building. I think that's good because that's fewer dollars coming out of our pocket, and they'll still be active in the fundraising aspect of it. So, yeah, I think we're at a good point though. This board is at a really good spot, and I've got high hopes going forward.
Okay. Port Orange South Daytona Chamber of Commerce this weekend. They are part of the effort for Riverfest on the Halifax. And you can visit the Port Orange Chamber website and get some details on that. But beautiful, beautiful weekend we should have, June 21st, 22nd, 23rd. But you can go to the website and get more details, and look forward to getting down there with that. Which brings me to the final one, the Roundtable of Elected Officials. We touched on this earlier. I'll just go ahead and recap again. The big push out of Roundtable of Elected Officials was a number of our requests to work collectively on smart growth. And honestly, coming to a consensus simply on what we mean by smart growth is going to be a challenge. Clay Irvin, the county, put on a presentation, left us with as many questions as he did answers. I think it's important that we participate in the larger effort. We're going to have planning staffs from a lot of cities in the county working together on an initiative, but they need our consensus out of a workshop on exactly what our participation should or should not be and what our standard is, and I think that that's important. And when I say more questions than answers, you think about how much development we've seen in the last 25, 30 years. A lot of what has happened and what will happen has already been predetermined based on zoning that's been put in place. So the things that we do to move forward, yeah, we want quality, we want out of all of that, but zoning already and future land use already exists on a lot of properties well outside of our boundaries that may one day be within our boundaries. So just keeping that in mind, we'll talk further about that at the workshop. With that, we have just scheduling. Next week, we have a workshop. This council does not meet again after that for a regular meeting until July 16th. Usually we meet the first week of the month. We're taking the first week of July off, as we normally do. So anybody who, whether we're closed captioning or not, if you tune in to POG TV expecting to see us the first Tuesday of July, that's why you will not see us. Anything else coming for us?
Are you all interested in relieving Mr. Stiltner from some of his committee responsibilities and
Yes, we
passing
are.
them on to some others? And I know I don't have a vote, but
I know he is, and we also have a Art House is uncovered, but
I think Art House might be, I'm just saying.
I would love to be on that house.
I'd love for you to be.
And
Let's
the-
get it on
and the-
agenda and make it happen.
And the fire pension?
I'll take the fire pension.
Are they agenda items, or are they just,
We need to talk about it on an agenda
Yeah,
so
okay.
that people know we're talking about it.
all right?
So
So,
there's some really important stuff coming up with the fire pension. The sooner the better.
so,
She needs to be at those meetings for sure.
so can I get consensus that at a minimum, fire in our house, so I can, what do you want me to put on the agenda?
Approval of committee assignments for
So
Art House and.
it's on today's agenda under city manager comments, discussion, council committee
I saw that, and we're discussing it. You got past that, didn't you?
So, where would you like it on the agenda next, on July 18th, 16th?
First item.
Regular?
First item on consent. That's how we draft Maryland into.
So, first item on consent, fire pension and
Art House.
Art House? Easy.
There you
I
go.
suggest that she attend those next two events as a guest, as a preparation for her upcoming assignment.
I would concur. If there are no other business coming before us this evening, then I must say one thing. Good night.
That was